DXY trends down, then relative to other currencies, it's devaluing. And right now, I'm of the belief that the dollar is going to mark down big time, and that's going to mean major breakouts for not only crypto, but metals, stock, basically everything, like I said before, that's denominated in the dollar. So when we look at the weekly trend, we see nothing terribly surprising here.
Always
We
buy.
see a bearish, what looks to be a bearish continuation setting up.
I'm muted to Schmitty, by the way.
It's sitting right at this support of the range right here. And it's tested it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5 times. And, as you guys know, the more and more support or resistance gets tested, the weaker it gets. And considering we saw such a massive fake out to the upside and immediate rejection, I'm in the camp where we're probably going to see this consolidation leading into the election, and then a breakdown is going to follow from there. So when we talk about downside targets, I'm targeting immediately this zone down here.
What do you mean they use it like candy?
At the monthly chart, it lines up really
like
well with the
midline
of its like supply and demand channel.
Or it's just like something fun.
So right in this green zone. They just
play with it.
And ultimately, it stands to reason that it'll most likely come down here. So that, percentage-wise, a lot of the crypto people are like looking at it like, oh, that's only a 10% drop. Who gives a shit, right? I mean, Monero and Link did 10% today. So what does 10% of the dollar mean? Well, when we look at the raging altcoin market we had a few weeks ago, that was on the heels of just this tiny little drop right here. And as the dollar continues to weaken, I think we're going to see dollar flight into other assets.
As a medium of exchange.
Crypto is going to reap the benefits of that. Some things that support this argument, we saw a really strong consolidation on the monthly Bollinger Bands, and it's just now starting to break out. Volatility is still expanding. There's no reason to think that this is the low. Everything,
but I feel you.
From my point of view, seems to hint toward a weakening dollar over the next.
But if the dollar weakens, like what Schmitty's saying,
so what does that mean?
That's what's really funny.
The way that I look at this is I always look at crypto as one asset. I've probably said this a million times, so I don't want to repeat myself terribly. But when we look at crypto, I like to use total crypto market cap because it just shows us what capital is doing in the market, and the general idea is that if total is
15K by election
going up in value,
I mean,
that means capital is entering the market. So I have a set of criteria.
Discuss that a little bit here.
It's very straightforward.
On my list,
my bias for crypto is bullish if there's an uptrend in total, and all that means is that the crypto market as a whole is growing. That doesn't tell us where we should put our dollars. That just tells us that crypto as a whole is growing. Capital is entering into the market, and it stands to reason that it's going to continue to grow. So some of the arguments in support of what I'm saying is, so these are weekly candles here, right, guys? For the first time since 2018, we're finding support on this level right here. It's been kind of choppy over the last few weeks. So if you're like a low time frame trader, it's just been doing a whole lot of this kind of shit on like Bitcoin and Ether, and other lower cap alts. It's just been kind of chopping around. Maybe you see it kind of a choppy like uptrend, but for the most part, it's nothing that's like decisively up or decisively down. I mean, there are a couple of things, but for the most part, right? But when we look at it from a very zoomed out perspective, and we see the weekly candles, it seems pretty obvious to me that we're in the middle of a support and resistance flip where this was previously resistance on 1, 2, 3, 4 occasions. I mean, and if you go back and here, you can argue that this was resistance here, but it really the resistance, the nail in the resistance coffin hadn't been hammered back in April. You sold right that here. And after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, it finally broke free. And the fact that we're finding support here has me incredibly bullish for crypto. This is the primary reason why I've been really harping on the idea of looking at markets from a high time frame perspective rather than looking at it from like hourly or 4-hour charts. I don't know how many of you guys were around in 2016 or 2017, but
thanks for the follow, Paul.
There's a funny thing that happens when the market isn't just like raging upward in this parabolic motion. People tend to zoom in on lower and lower time frames, and they miss the bigger picture. So I really want to hammer home this idea that we really got to be patient in this beginning and this bull market beginning sort of behavior. Because you don't want to be too eager and overload yourself with a margin position because it still hasn't decisively broken out. This is by far the most bullish reaction we could ask for. So this is like, if ever you were looking for the AOK from the crypto market to say, I mean, are we going to do this, guys? Like, what are we doing here? This is the battleground here. So losing this level is going to most likely it's not going to look good. It's most likely going to bleed out, test lower levels of support and all that other annoying shit. But for the most part, this is looking about as bullish as we could ask for, especially going into the close for the weekly candle here in about 2 hours. It does have this, like, you could argue this is like a bearish retest or whatever you want to call it. But I'm mostly looking at when I zoom out, I don't want to look at these lower sort of structures. When I zoom out, I'm zooming out because I want to see what is the big picture here. And right now, the big picture is we decisively broke resistance. It tried to plunge below it, and the market said, no, we're comfortable sitting here. So keep in mind, this argument is that this is crypto. This doesn't mean that this is Bitcoin. This doesn't mean this is Ether. This is crypto. So as we're placing this argument of, okay, well, we're bullish on crypto, we need to dig a little deeper and say, well, where the dollar's going, right? Is it going to Bitcoin? Is it going to high cap alts? Is it going to low cap alts? And for that, we need to drill a little bit deeper and get more specific with our charting. So just to recap, we've got the bearish dollar argument, which even if you're not tracking the dollar, I think just by the simple ratio of Bitcoin to the dollar market, I think we can all agree that if the dollar does go down, Bitcoin is most likely going to gain value. And when we look at
where the dollar videos on that comment,
where the dollar buying power is
about
going
how, like,
toward,
when the dollar loses value,
that it's going
Bitcoin goes
crypto.
up. It's actually really nice. Gold does the same.
Before I talk about more specific charts, let me see if there's any questions here. I see some of the chat in
Bezos is loving this market either way. He probably
YouTube is picking up.
Owns a few crypto.
Cheers from Istanbul.
You're probably right,
geez.
dude.
12:30 in the morning. Well, hopefully you'll have to be up early in the morning.
What do they say? Billionaires have added like 20% to their total capital through the pandemic.
Just some people bonding over New Zealand stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Try to chart X Pro. Bitcoin, Schmitcoin. Try chart X Pro to use TradingView on. I'm not sure what that means.
I like all these comments he's getting.
He's talking about DeFi coins. I'm totally out of the loop on DeFi coins. I know I sound like the crazy old man in the front yard, just like screaming at the cloud. You know that that like meme. It's like, like, you crazy kids with your DeFi coins. You don't know how good you got it. I can't bring myself to give a shit about that. Eventually, a spike in XRP will reign the real bull market, in my opinion. I mean, that's a very good point, and I'm actually going to talk about XRP because they have, what is it? The Swell conferences this week, I believe. So that historically is a bullish event for Ripple, or for XRP rather. Using Link as an indicator where crypto is going, it's been 2 steps ahead of everything this year. Another great point. I totally agree with that, and we're also going to talk about that because I am of the belief that for whatever reason,
we're going to do a little back and forth here in a minute.
I don't want to speculate one way
First
or the other.
10, 15
all
minutes
is the trend.
It's all him.
And the trend is over the last year and a half, Link has front ran both bullish and bearish market conditions. And the fact that Link is looking so bullish has me also leaning bullish. There's just this long list of reasons why I'm bullish on crypto, and a very, 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 very short list of why I would be bearish. Okay. All right, so let's dig a little deeper. Let's look at total two. So total two, all total two is just where's my text? So
I love total two.
total two equals total minus Bitcoin or minus whatever. Okay, so we're looking at the total two chart. So this means these are all altcoins. Let's move that up there. Make it more visually appealing. Oh, let me know if you guys hear my shitty neighbor's dog barking, which I've literally never heard it barking in the last 2 years. Maybe they just got this fucking dog, but I have my windows open because it's beautiful outside. So if you hear a dog barking, like, let me know and I'll go and murder
Really
I'm not going to murder the dog. I'm just kidding. But I'll go and I'll shut my windows. My windows are open right now.
Cancel him. He's
But
murdering
I think
dogs.
it's okay. You guys tell me. Anyway, so we're looking at total two right now. So if we were to, okay, so there's a number of really fun things going on with this total two chart. So I don't know how to interpret the volume on this. So I'm going to commit the cardinal sin and do a quick and dirty Wyckoff analysis on a range without volume. Because I don't really even know what this volume means. I don't know how to make sense of it, and it doesn't. I don't care. So at minimum, we can look at the total two market cap, which means all of
Pentaga. This is a good one to make, dude.
I'm
only streaming for about an hour. However long this lasts.
If you want to get super technical and nerdy, we can say that this is a Wyckoff accumulation over a 2-year span. And that's basically been since the beginning of the bear market. So, you can say that this was the bear market back in the day. We can say that this was the beginning of the bear market back in the day, but when we look at it on a log chart, you can really see that this was the meat of the bear market right here. It was everything from July 2018, August 2018 on. That was the bear market. And we can see now that we're finally breaking out of this thing. We're breaking out of this macro accumulation over a 2-year span, and it has a humongous price target. So to put things into perspective, all the gains we saw in the altcoin sector over the last few months, like when we had that like random pop where Ether marked up $200, all these DeFi coins were just going fucking ham. That was only this little leg right here. I'm much more optimistic, and I think just based on basic chart projected growth for the double bottom setup, I'm targeting another 70% growth. And to put things in perspective, that last leg that we saw was about 70%. So we could just see some really stupid shit start to happen. We could see altcoins just really taking off. We could see Bitcoin really taking off. So when we look at this chart and we take this into consideration with the total market cap, so let's go back and look at that. So total, which is all of the crypto, the entire crypto market. Again, we've got this strong bullish bias here, strong bullish market structure here. And when we look at where we want to put our dollar, if we're looking at total two, it says we want to be looking at putting our money into altcoins. So
he's right.
We're digging a little deeper here, right? So first looked at.
I'm saying that as a total Bitcoin maximalist.
Total tells us
what the chart says. What the chart says
tells us to dig deeper, and we see that our money is best spent in the altcoin markets. So what does this say? This says all these bullish biases that we're finding across the board. It's telling us we need to be little truffle pigs and get in the dirt and start looking at what are the best altcoin charts, because you know, nothing wrong with throwing your money at Bitcoin. It's again, nothing wrong. But if we're looking at what is the best bang for your buck, this says that altcoins are most likely going to outperform Bitcoin on the next leg again. So any upside potential that we see in the crypto market is most likely going to be dominated by the altcoin market cap. And that means it's time to start looking at charts, start looking at them from a bullish perspective, and start finding the best bang for your buck while also limiting risk. Before I go into any of the Bitcoin or altcoin charts, do you guys have any questions?
And if you guys have questions too, just let me know and I can pass them on to him.
Is this going to be available tomorrow as a replay? Yeah, all my stuff is saved. It's on my channel, both on Twitch and YouTube, I believe. It's getting late here. Yeah, no worries, bud. Go for it. Wonder if that rise would get linked to over $50. This guy really wants to talk about Link, and so do I. And I'm going to, because I'm really excited about the Link chart. I've been excited about Link for quite some time, and it's finally time to see the next leg up in Link.
Guy in his chat just asked a really good question there.
Let's go ahead and talk about Bitcoin. First, we'll look at it from a structural perspective. What the hell is that? Get out of here. I think I mentioned this in my last stream about a week and a half ago. But for whatever reason, there was this move right here got people really, really bearish. And it really confused me because this to me looks like a bullish retest. So, you know, when we look at the monthly chart, for example, when I see a monthly level like this homeboy right there, and you know, this little guy right here, and this little band getting tested, this gets me really excited. This is a break in market structure. There was a bearish market structure for 2 years that is now saying we're no longer interested in lower lows. Let's try out higher highs and higher lows. Okay, so we're closing this guy, or I'm sorry, we're closing this guy above this guy. So we're getting a higher high. We're closing this guy above support. That's like perfectly on there to the to the pixel. This just screams bullish to me. I don't know what people were seeing when they said it was bearish, but I mean, maybe I'm just like super bull because of my dollar argument and because of everything else, but this just screams bullish to me. I don't get it. And when we look even deeper into the weekly chart, we see further supporting evidence. So this level right here, if we follow this, oh, my gray zone got moved. Is it locked? Sometimes TradingView does that.
He's right. It does that shit.
But we see this gray zone right here. This was resistance for a long time. I mean, it was resistance here, here. We can argue this was resistance here because it failed to close back above it. But here, and finally the market says, we're interested in testing out what the bulls have to offer because the bears aren't doing it for me these days. And when I see that, again, in conjunction with a weakening dollar, the total market cap is trending up. Total 2 is trending up. Bitcoin just looks like it's a steam engine that's just getting going. You know, the wheels are turning, and Bitcoin is such a big ship compared to the other altcoins.
Keep going. I'm almost there.
I'm sorry, compared to the altcoin market.
I'm almost there, Bitcoin.
It's just going to take a minute to get going. But right now, I think we're starting to see the momentum starting to build up. And the next move up is going to be flipping this guy here. So maybe something like this, where we come up. Dude, that was a pretty straight line. I free-handed that. Oh, we'll zoom out. Look how straight it is. But yeah, it'll be something like that. And even when we look at the daily chart, you know, this just looks like it wants to test higher. I legitimately don't, I mean, I guess you could argue this is a bearish retest of this on the daily, but I don't know. To me, I have zero interest in looking at shorts. At most, I will close a position, but I have zero interest in shorting this market. I'm looking at dips as buying opportunities. And where we go from here, where we start talking about alts, that's where my primary focus is. I'm just looking at Bitcoin to not basically is so the criteria is this: is total market cap trending up? Check. Is total 2 trending up? Yes. Is Bitcoin trending up? Yes. And if so, you may invest in alts. That is the criteria in which I look at the market.
He's actually really good with that.
That's like my
his
logic,
checklist.
my simplified logic chart. I'm just looking for Bitcoin to not want to dump, because if Bitcoin dumps, everyone knows it ruins the altcoin party. And it, we don't want to see weakness in Bitcoin. And so far, I see no signs of weakness. I mean, yeah, we did see this impulse down, but it went into support. It got bought up on support, both a monthly, a weekly, and now daily. It just looks like it's kind of doing this like stair-stepping sort of thing. I mean, I'm not sure when higher highs and higher lows became the bearish standard, but I think a lot of people are just jaded from the 2018 market conditions, that they're not looking at it objectively. So I'm going to talk about 2 altcoins real quick, and then I'll bring Jack on here to talk about some of the altcoins he's looking at. And then we'll open it up for discussion and maybe take a whack at some coins you guys want to look at. I have a question from Twitch. Are you a believer in the 4-year Bitcoin cycle?
That's a good question.
I'm not a believer in anything that only has 2 cycles behind it. So no, I think a data, an N of 2 is not a trend. So no, I'm not a fan of that. I think a lot of people started buying into cycles back in 2019 and 2018, and they just watched their altcoins. They're like, oh, look, it's at the cycle low. And then they're like, oh, I'm going to buy a huge bag of whatever this is. And then womp, womp, womp. It just kept going. Look at Zcash for Christ's sake. It was like in a perpetual down. I mean, now it's reversing, but it was in a perpetual downtrend for like a goddamn century. So before I move on to Ether and Link, and maybe Monero, because today I'm a Monero maximalist. So that's going to change tomorrow, obviously. But right now I have Monero positions open, so I'm pulling for Monero. But before I move on from Bitcoin to some of the alts, do you guys have any questions? Wi-Fi looks ugly. I have never looked at a Wi-Fi chart. Just what people post on Twitter.
He's gonna laugh when I'm gonna bust out some DeFi charts.
Okay,
and he's not gonna be ready for it. And it's gonna be hilarious.
Let's talk about some alts, shall we? So going along with the theme of where is my dollar best spent, it is then wise to compare your alt to Bitcoin, because if it's not outperforming Bitcoin, why the fuck are you buying the alt, right? Why are you having your money sitting in an illiquid asset? Meaning, if shit hits the fan and starts bleeding out, you don't want to be eating slippage all the way down, and then you just cry because it hits the bottom and it reverses, right? So the least amount of time you can spend exposed to highly illiquid markets, the better, just from a risk standpoint. But yeah, so if it's not outperforming Bitcoin, why are you in it, right? So let's look at Ether Bitcoin. As far as charts go from a macro perspective, Ether Bitcoin is a hard one to beat. Okay, so this is the weekly chart. And for those that have been following me for any length of time, you guys know that my trend metrics, this is the standard that I go by. So I have my 50 EMA, my 200 EMA, and then I have my cloud on standard settings. And
Thanks
right
for the
now,
follow,
the fact that the market is above the
Appreciate you.
get the fuck out of here. The fact that the market is above the 200 EMA, this is huge. Huge. I can't express this enough. Not only is it above it, but it's finding support. And it's finding support at a time when the cloud looks just stupid bullish. Okay, so if you're looking at cloud metrics, the only thing that would make this more bullish than what it already is, and we have to keep our expectations in in check here, but it's going to take probably another 6 to 7 months for this to even be a possibility. But the only thing that would make this chart any more bullish than it already is if the 50 EMA was above the 200 EMA, and we would get the so-called golden cross here. But this is a weekly chart. The cloud metrics are just as bullish as can be. But when we're looking at sustained bullish trend, we want to see the 50 above the 200. But right now, this is cool. This is good. This is something we can work with. When we look at so Ether Bitcoin is set to outperform Bitcoin. Yes. Okay. Let's look at it from a support and resistance perspective. To me, again, I don't know why people are viewing this as a bearish setup, but to me, this is about as bullish as you can ask for. We have historic levels here, and it reclaims support. So, we can't really we can't really ask for too much more here. When we look at the Ether USD chart, same thing. We're seeing this support and resistance flip here, and it doesn't get much more bullish than this. The only thing that would this is it. It broke out of historic levels. It swung down, tagged the support and resistance level, and it's flipping it as support. And this is a weekly chart, guys. So when I'm looking at projections for where this thing could go, I'm estimating about I don't know, a new all-time high. That's my projection. Minimum $800 here. And one of the first, so this is a good segue here. One of the first people that showed me this correlation between Ether and Bitcoin was Jack. So I don't know if Jack is still alive or if he's dead, but I kind of want to bring him on here to talk. Yeah, that's you puking. Can you talk about like the correlation between Ether and or not the correlation, but like the setup, the Wyckoff accumulation? Yeah. So let me share your screen with me, and then I'll drag your screen onto my screen, and they'll make love.
Oh, okay. Share your screen.
Yeah, just do it through Discord.
Yep. Okay, it's being finicky. 1 second. Let me move there, and that to there, and then share screen. And go live. Got it.
Okay, pop that out. And you guys should see. Yeah, I should see his monitor.
I'll give it a sec. You can tell me if it worked or not.
So there's a question on YouTube that I'll let you answer. Like, what is your time frame? Are we talking end of year 2021, next 2 years? All right. Jack, you have the floor.
Oh, hi guys. What's up? All right. So to pivot straight off of what Bitcoin was talking about, there's a relationship between Bitcoin USD and Ethereum USD that kind of caught my eye, and it's something I've been keeping my eye on ever since. And at first, I want to go back into the 2014, 2015 setup that Bitcoin showed prior to its markup and attack of the all-time high. Back when it fell to about $160, depending on your exchange, it started to form this trade range. And a lot of people will immediately say, oh yeah, well, there's the trade range. And then, when it broke out, it actually got above it and it consolidated and then took off. But you can actually get a little more nuanced. And just like Bitcoin mentioned, this is pure Wyckoff accumulation. And Wyckoff, old Dick Wyckoff, he's somebody you should Google, read about him. He has done lots of let's see. I didn't have that little schematic pulled up, but I'll just grab it real quick. But basically, he asked the question, if you have more money than God, how do you enter or exit markets in a way that you don't just send the price skyrocketing? If, like, for example, if a $100 billion company is trading against literally you and me, and we're in the same pool moving things around, how are they doing it without just completely causing a tidal wave, and especially on a new asset like Bitcoin? Well, glad you asked. It's a good question. What they do is enter through this accumulation schematic. There's lots of different schematics, but for the most part, it comes down to forming a trade range, leaving the trade range once you have collected enough of the asset. And this applies across many assets. It's not strictly Bitcoin, but there's just a really good example here with Bitcoin. And so I like to start with that to show, if we look at total 2, which will then lead us to Ethereum, let's look at what total 2 is signaling over the past 2 years. It is literally the same thing. They have painted this schematic, which again, they can't help but paint it. And essentially what it is, it's them having bids ready, price starts to leave, and they're buying at the same time. Once it starts to get to a certain point, they may be the ones to actually sell to intentionally drive price back down each time it hits up at this upper range of what they're willing to pay. So throughout this whole range, they will net gain enough that their intent is to have control of the market in such a way that as price works upwards, it doesn't matter if you're selling everything you've got. It doesn't matter. They own enough of the supply that they will win. They will offset you, and they will continue to buy more. They will push the price up. So when you see total 2 like this, it begs the question, what? And I need to make the point here. Total 2 is the crypto market cap without Bitcoin. So it does not include Bitcoin. It is alts. It's basically the alt market cap. It's a way to look at it through TradingView. And what you should be asking is, well, if this total 2 is showing this pattern that is very believable, this is on a weekly time frame, it's spent 2 years building this pattern, it's finally breaking out of it, then we should look at the things that make up total 2. That would be, the reasonable thing, the reasonable question to ask. So that leads us to Ethereum, which you can see, being the top alt by market cap. It is a picture perfect accumulation trade range that is currently breaking up. It is above the trade range, forming this last little pattern, which is called the sign of strength, or SOS, but it's the last point of supply as well. And what this is saying is, you can look at this and reasonably, you see how it keeps wicking at a certain price? You will not be able to buy Ethereum below that price. Like this, ideally. Now, the caveat here is just like Bitcoin was saying, if Bitcoin USD shits the bed, or some horrific thing happens, or there's they find a way to hack the code of Bitcoin or whatever, there's all these qualifiers that you can paint on it. But in normal market conditions, this would insinuate that it is moving up. Another caveat is, when Bitcoin broke out of its 8-month accumulation range, it spent another 5 or 6 months just forming this sign of strength. So that would suggest that if Ethereum did something similar, I mean, we could be at this 430 to 300 to 400 range for a period of months. Like it doesn't mean just like, go 100x margin long today because we're going to the moon. But what it does mean is you should have your eye on buying at least some of these low retests And keeping in mind that as long as those continue to hold, this is a great macro entry for Ethereum and a number of other alts, which I'll get into here in a second. One of the things somebody asked me in another stream is, how do you know redistribution versus accumulation? It just that particular, those differences are very scary to me, because redistribution would be something like, oh, hey, this was a fake out, and then we make new lows, like we continue down, and this was just a pit stop basically in the price action. And one of the easiest ways to tell is you find this particular top portion of the trade range, which we are trading above, we're trending above. And if the weekly starts to close below that, maybe even give it a retest and continue down. I mean, right in here, that break below and retest, or just the break below of any sort, that's your sign that, okay, hey, this wasn't. But we can't really project off of maybes and worst case scenarios. You got to trade what the charts show right now. And the charts show incredible strength after a 2-year accumulation trade range, which is massive. But I plan to move to a couple others, but did you want to add any comments to that, Schmidtcoin?
No, I think that's exactly right. And you got everyone knows that I'm like really big into like the whole Wyckoff theory. But the thing to keep in mind is that the reason why these trading ranges often take the same form is because it is the most efficient way to move the most amount of money without losing or slipping the market. And so we see these like crazy shakeouts, like if you look at Jack's chart right before April, that humongous shakeout, and it was a very sudden event. And then what happened after that? Nothing but big green candles came coasting out of that, and the selling responses were very small and minuscule. And again, breaking out of the little consolidation, a little LPS he has there. I guess people can see my mouse, can't they? Oh yeah, cool. So this shakeout that happened, this is like, it's considered a quote unquote terminal shakeout, meaning that it's the last ditch to say from the large banks to say how much free floating supply is there out there. And so this was the question. They got their answer, and then from there it just slowly started marking up. And we saw that not only on Ether, but on the total market cap as well. And I know that you have a few charts that echo similar structure to this.
Right. And this is very strange, because I never thought I'd be talking about this alt in particular with any kind of seriousness, but it's actually NEO. NEO it's got an ugly sign of strength right now, but it's above the trade range and it's holding. And especially after it's the spring or terminal shakeout dropped below $4 on most exchanges, and now it's back above. Same idea. It's the exact same thing. And these are all matching with total 2 again, which are all. And let's put this into perspective, because some people may be like, yeah, okay, well, what does that actually mean? Like, who cares? Okay, let me show you why you should care. The last time we saw something like this, Bitcoin accumulated below, arguably $300 to $200 to $300. Let's say 200 was the low of that trade range. We went to 20,000, for God's sake. That's a 100x play. Okay. So the insinuation is there's all kinds of qualifiers here, but just to give you an example of like how serious you should take this, Ethereum has spent a roughly 3 times longer doing the same buildup, because Bitcoin spent about 8 months. Ethereum is right at 2 years. And the insinuation would be we would make roughly 100 times if it did the same thing as Bitcoin. And it's not really how you trade Wyckoff. You got to look for signs of it slowing and actually some distribution and stuff like that. But just so you the viewer, if you're very new to this, so you can kind of get an idea of this to wrap your arms around. If the low of Ethereum was roughly $100, this would suggest $10,000 Ethereum. So, and again, that is kind of pie in the sky. And, we all hope that what we buy makes crazy multiples. I get it. What all I'm saying is, if it did what Bitcoin did, if it does what Bitcoin did, that would put Ethereum price target somewhere in the $10,000 range, which is wild as hell.
I kind of think that the reason why alts are accumulating so much longer than what Bitcoin did is because they're so much more illiquid. And so it takes a longer time to soak up free floating supply from alts. Rather than, whereas Bitcoin has a higher market cap, it's more liquid on the exchanges. And people that are entering in a crypto from a fundamental standpoint most likely aren't going to be shaken out as easily as they would with their alts. Everyone's afraid of missing the parabolic Bitcoin run. People aren't really that interested in hypothesizing about, a parabolic ether run, for example.
Right, or Neo, for God's sake. Like,
yeah, or fucking Neo.
Somebody actually spent 2 years accumulating Neo. It wasn't me. I'll tell you that much, because that's not something I look at. But somebody did. And that's the thing. You got to put your bias aside. Like, I am a Bitcoin maximalist through and through. I think Ethereum will crash and burn some point in the future. But the chart is saying that is not today, and that's not in the near future. It may be, if there's some coding error or whatever, all bets are off, right? I mean, there'll be rug pulls for days on something like that. But you can't trade a chart based off of that. And the chart is saying we going up. A few others that have caught my eye, not nearly as clean as Ethereum or Neo, because those are the two cleanest, I think. ADA, which is doing something similar. This is the ugliest sign of strength I've ever seen, but I kind of suspect we're going to make some kind of macro SOS. And
I actually don't mind that because it has a really clean support and resistance flip. If it was like closing below the range boundary, that would give me a little bit of pause. But the fact that it's wicking deep below it and closing above, yeah, I'm a fan of that.
That's kind of what I'm liking too. But it'll give it time to play out. I think that would be a decent entry. TRX also, which is really interesting because this is, I mean, you talk about a shitcoin. This is as shitcoin as it gets, but it exploded out of this trade range. Again, 2 straight years. It's coming down in testing, and we'll see in a week or two. This is why this is low down on my list, because it is, while there is a strength, resistance support kind of flip here, it is still pushing down pretty heavily. So
yeah, guys, the thing to keep in mind with charts like this is that there's no rush. Like, we want to see tests and responses, and right now, I think rushing into a TRX position right now would be a mistake.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
If you see like in a month or two that we start closing, similar to how Ether did a few candles back, and we start to see rallies off of it, and we start to see, basically a group consensus that we're buying everything below this.
Right.
Then it's time to start considering. But right now, this is just like a wait and see, in my opinion, for TRX.
Yep, 100%. This is not one I've entered. I've entered all the other alts I've mentioned as low in the SOS as I could, and just keeping an eye on it from there. TRX, I have not, because it is ugly as hell. And I actually don't like seeing these huge wicks like this.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think that kills your market structure. And to me, it is a sign that the whales are out of control, as silly as that sounds.
No, I agree.
Because someone who was actually accumulating in here, he would be protecting it. He would be like keeping the genie in the bottle until he was absolutely ready, and building the market structure up. Blow-offs
tend to hurt long-term market performance.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I agree with that.
All right, XMR. This butte.
Yeah, XMR is such a good.
Oh my god. Yeah. Instead of Pornhub, guys, just look at XMR charts, and that should do it. Exactly. So XMR, I mean, I fully expect this to kind of break, but that's why I actually have two parabolas that I'm watching. This is Monero Bitcoin, so this is the Bitcoin pair, and I'm keeping an eye on what I think is a sustainable longer term parabolic move. Which, you see Bitcoin do stuff like this a lot. It'll be like short-term parabolic blow-offs and then some kind of retrace, and then it'll, continue on. So anyway, I'm keeping an eye on this. I could be totally wrong. It could pull up, 50x tonight. Who knows? God knows. But
I hope not.
I hope not too, because I'm not as exposed as I'd like to be. Link is very interesting to me, and the only reason I even look at it or got an entry in it is because of you
on Binance.
Link
look at Link USD on Binance. It'll be like, calculated by TradingView. Yeah. Look at all that.
So clean. I love that. These sell-offs.
Oh, you're only looking at it because I talked about it for a goddamn year and a half.
Yes. Well, no, not even that, because I knew you had content on it. But to me, it was not something I was ever interested in. I don't know. I just never got involved in Link. Like it wasn't something that got my attention. And then like we were doing something and actually talking like, you know, face to face, so to speak. And you were like, dude, get into Link. Why have you not? So I actually, my entries, my biggest entries were right here. There, and just because it fell, and at the time it was falling, I noticed that Ethereum, it was testing its like kind of the lower end of its SOS that I'd been watching, and so I figured that was as good a time as any. But so I actually am waiting on that one.
Is number 7 on the market cap right now.
It's crazy. It's gonna be wild. I need to move this up and keep an eye on it. So these are the only. Oh, and then you mentioned Doge, and I do want to make one point on Doge because I think a lot of people sleep on Doge. Doge does this thing, or as one of my no coin friends calls it, Doggy Coin does one of these things where if you buy, what is the deal? It's like you buy sub 30, this is the saying, and you sell around 60. You could be rich. And then if you leave at least a little bit of a bag for 100. So the idea being, you want to be the guy, because this is so consistent, you want to be buying near the lows and having sell orders ready for these explosive moves. Buying, selling, right? All the way through. Now, recently we had this blow off. So it spent an entire year in this little consolidation pattern before it actually blew off. So I would actually give it another several months to form whatever it's going to do, because you don't want to be buying at 24 sats when it drops down to 14. So
yeah, on the chart it doesn't look like much, but that's like a 50% drop.
Yeah. You just lost 50% of your capital right there. So like, for example, what I did is I was buying in here kind of near this near the end here. Because it was pretty clear. I mean, you could even get this little like linear move and see what was happening. And so I was kind of buying in the last month or two, and then it exploded and I actually sold. And I kept a little bit of a bag, like about a quarter portion, and I'm just kind of waiting to see, because I suspect there'll be another big move. But I will re-enter heavily, especially if it keeps making new lows. Let's see how much time I have. About 5 minutes, then I gotta run. I think the only other thing that I wanted to bring up is a lot of people will ask me, hey, when is the best time to buy alts? And I just like going back and showing this particular moment in time. And you may have to finish this if I don't get the thought completely finished. Let's see. All right, so all we have to focus on is prior history, right? I mean, we can speculate all we want, but let's look and see what actually happened in the prior run up. So this white line, the bottom portion here is Bitcoin. The top portion, let's pick one that's been around for a while, like Litecoin. Where are you? Where's Litecoin? All right, Litecoin. So we're going to put them both on the weekly. All right, we're going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, so on the bottom, you see as I move my cursor along the candles on the bottom, which is Bitcoin, it also moves a cursor or a line of some sort on the top so that you can kind of keep up with the moments of time, right? So as Bitcoin is trending up, fighting the all-time high, and finally breaking above it, the moment it is convincingly going above, I mean, it's the third retest on the weekly of the prior all-time high. So this would be like if Bitcoin attacked the 20,000 range again. Literally, that is when Litecoin took off and made the most ridiculous run that we'd seen Litecoin do. In the end, it was a 90x in the time that Bitcoin pulled a 20x, because Bitcoin went from 1,000 to 20,000. Litecoin went from like $4 and change to almost 400. I mean, it's disgusting. So that caught my eye a while back. Litecoin obviously consolidated building up to that, and I think we're seeing something like that with Litecoin specifically right now as well. But I don't want to get into that because I don't have the time right now. I do want to show another alt, because you got to ask yourself, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe this was just a fluke. Maybe the Litecoin thing was just a fluke, and that's not actually what other alts do. Okay, well, here's Ethereum back at this time as well. Ethereum had been around before the attack of the all-time high. And again, we can watch what happens. We hit the all-time high, we break above, we start, as we're fighting this all-time high and breaking above it convincingly. Hold on, where does it start? That is when Ethereum is breaking above $15. Okay, and they both kind of move in sync, but Ethereum outgains for the period of time, outgains Bitcoin. So there's a number of alts like that. So if you're waiting for like a really good signal, and you don't believe in the Wyckoff sign of strength and all these other things that we've discussed, the trend metrics and the clouds and on, waiting for Bitcoin to attack and break the all-time high is actually not a bad idea. It's a historically, if you pair it up with what's happened, a lot of alts have taken that as a sign to get real horny real fast. And it gets wild. Doge does it. Everything does. There's all kinds of coins that have done it. So that's the end of my deal. The only thing I'd like to plug is I literally started a YouTube last night, and I uploaded I have one video, and it's actually from my last stream. So
my first YouTube.
My first YouTube. So I actually have timestamps for each of the topics we discussed, because it was about a 50-minute video. So you can just click to the thing. But we talk about Wyckoff accumulation. A lot of the stuff we talked about today, we go into details there.
Well, plug your stream too, because he actually streams more frequently than I do, and I hop on your stream like half the time.
Yeah, that's true. We just did StarCraft the other night, but yeah. So my stream is twitch.tv/cryptojack. The O is the number O.
Let me get the fucking link for it. I should have done that.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Copy the link address. I'll post it in the chat, guys.
All right. And I'm on that 3 or 4 times a week, just kind of depending on what we have going on.
Yeah.
But for you, Schmitty, this is the last thing I want to say, and then I got to go. What's funny is I'm noticing no matter what we say during this period, you and I are very bullish, but we say we have this. There's this feeling like we're the guy on the street corner with like the end is near sign. And we're trying to say, like, guys, bye. Like, you're about to lose your opportunities. Like, please, come on. But what's funny is it actually doesn't matter what we're saying. And thanks for the follows, guys. It all like flooded in here. Because we are at this. This is part of the market cycle where like people have been so beaten down. No matter what we say, no one's going to listen. Or the majority is not going to listen. But I hope a few of the people that were here do listen, and maybe, it helps them and they do well in the future financially. So I don't know. We'll see. That's it. So that's the end of my little bit. I think it's funny where we are on all this.
Yeah, I feel like that constantly, especially when you're, well, for me specifically, like one of my main arguments is that the dollar is going down. People are like, sure it is, asshole. I'm
like, no, wait, what? Hold on. Are you still on my chart or on my deal? And I know you pull this up, but this is when I do my little crypto bit when I stream. One of the first things I always pull up is the M2.
What is that?
That is the supply of US dollars. Over time, and it's very linear. It's about 3 to 4%.
Oh my god!
No, this is because of COVID and the stimulus that came with it. We literally had a 21% increase in the number of dollars. And people will tell me, there's not really inflation. The Fed told us there's no inflation, and I'm like, dude, what else do you need to see?
Yeah.
And they're talking about stimulus number 2.
Yeah.
So it's going to be another one. So anyway, I got to run. I love you all. Schmitty's going to keep streaming, so switch over to his stream, and I'll raid your channel so it sends my guys to you as well. But anyway, until next time, I appreciate it, everybody. Y'all have a good one.